Don't forget to click like and subscribe to the Heavy Underground. The power of the skull compels you.
Making what has become an annual appearance in the Pittsburgh area, Louisiana sludge offenders Eyehategod infest the basement haunt known as Cattivo in the downstream Lawrenceville neighborhood on May 16, 2019 for a reckless night of hardcore punk, grind diversions, and hefty sludge stylings, joined by local hardcore icons Killer of Sheep, California grind freaks Phobia, a raucous New York hardcore throwdown from Sheer Terror, and a lesson in hardcore punk history from Detroit Legends' Negative Approach. Eyehategod marshal a vicious lineup of fetid aggression and virulent hostility. Local scene paragons Killer of Sheep open the show with their clamorous strain of abrasive hardcore. Led by heavy music lifers Oyo on guitar and Greg on drums, Killer of Sheep are rounded out by Trip on bass and Ollie on vocals. Forming in 2011, the combustible musical mind meld known as Killer of Sheep has earned a distinguished reputation for delivering a ferociously high-octane brand of hardcore. Joining the party a few minutes late, the final seconds of an abusive hardcore streak jolts from the speakers. Thankfully only missing a song or two, lead vocalist Ollie briefly addresses the crowd. Up since 5 and with nothing witty to say, Ollie steadies the crowd for the next volley of Killer of Sheep's incendiary strain of hardcore. Clouds from the band's 2012 Out of Time 7-inch stomps its way into the waiting crowd. Impetuous and insistent, Clouds burrows deep with a quick churning beatdown as the band shifts into high gear with a seething stridency. Rock and roll is all right by me, exclaims Ollie on the microphone before unrepentant speed takes control as You're a Customer clamors forth with a halting opening churn. Roaring to life, Trip's bass throttles the air on this brief beatdown from the band's most recent release, 2017's Scorned. Oyo commandeers the microphone for a moment to give a shout out to Greg the drummer. Having undergone shoulder surgery less than a month earlier, his presence is noted and applauded before the next song is deployed. An initial hardcore breakout rockets through the room to start the next song, 2017's Thought Police. Hitting with an initial sinewy run, the song soon gives over to a scrambling backwater breakdown. Nearing the song's end, the band wades into some noise-addled post-hardcore waters for a quick drawdown to close out Thought Police on a more exploratory note. Thanking the audience for letting them play, while simultaneously assuring everyone that it will be over soon, Ollie once again addresses the crowd between songs as the band readies its next salvo. Sovereignty, the lead-off track from the band's most recent release, Scorned, hurtles from the stage next. Nimble runs and strident urgency careen through the speakers as Killer of Sheep tear into the song with madcap glee. A thorough face stomping ensues before Sovereignty ends with a quick turnaround into a new song from the band titled American Terror. Battering the welcoming masochists in attendance with a blunted brutality, American Terror leads with a bruising crush. Taking a turn, the middle moments race by with a buoyant, bass-driven momentum providing lift, while the pained hardcore howl of Ollie roars above the band's harried attack. A word about safe spaces from our less and less reticent frontman has guitarist Oyo joining in to dole out some common sense to the crowd. Back to 2017 Scorned, the jig is up, careens forth next. Bass and drums scramble from the stage as Oyo's guitar cuts a sinister swath on this quick-paced projectile of compacted aggression. With a seething whirlpool of bludgeoning power and pit-warping momentum, another Scorn track, Use of Force, powers up. Oyo's guitar battery drops a clobbering flurry of six-string enmity on this stridently feral song. With a quick turnaround into the next track, Lose Control barrels forth and wrecks the place in short order. Noisy bass drops and scathing vocals highlight this fleeting sonic bomb from the band's debut 7-inch, Out of Time. Stop touching me, exclaims Ollie before 2017's Stand Your Ground slow walks to a hefty start. The band briefly builds some tension before ripping it wide open into a full-charge stampede. A scathing viciousness rips from the stage as Killer of Sheep scorch the air on a blistering run-through of this barn burner from Scorned. Ollie's vocals unleash at a skittering cadence and frenzied pace, providing a frenetic stimulant cutting across the band's instrumental evisceration. Dedicating the next song to New Orleans, all of you, and everyone over 40, Oyo segues into the band's final song, with Ollie adding that whether you have love for someone or hate them, this song is for you. With boundless energy, the last song is soon racing into the ether. A guitar solo arises from Oyo's six-string harangue as Killer of Sheep finishes their show opening salvo with relentless drive and face-peeling aggression. Settling into a quick and abusive pace to open the evening, Killer of Sheep obliterate the stage with their ferocious strain of hardcore. From the band's 2012 debut EP to their most recent full-length 2017 Scorned, even a new song, Killer of Sheep's set delivers a blustering dervish of hardcore gold. Churlish bass, rampaging guitar riffs, unrelenting rhythmic strikes, and irascible vocal fire spark a sonic inferno to begin the night's heavy celebration. Nearing 30 years of unrepentant grind devotion, California-based freaks Phobia joined the fray for an extreme dose of hostility tonight. Founding mutants Bruce Reeves and Shane McLaughlin anchor the band on guitar and vocals respectively, with Danny Walker pounding the skins incessant and Kayla McKenzie on low-end mistreatment. An upcoming EP titled Generation Coward, due in August, finds Phobia continuing to obliterate minds and souls with a pitiless devotion to all that is grind. With a sampled air siren blaring through the PA, Phobia launch into Internet Tough Guy from the band's 2019 EP Generation Coward. Forcefully pounding into this first song following an epic open, Phobia soon twists into grinding form as Internet Tough Guy delivers a scattershot round to open the band's set as fast-paced runs wind into a slowed groove to close out the song. Before long, however, Shane McLaughlin's vocals flay the audience wide open with a piercing shriek on Rehashed. Bellowing subterfuge spills from McLaughlin's mouth as a mid-paced abusive passage rises to the occasion on this 2010 offering. A galloping blitzkrieg overtakes on Blind Arrogance, drawn and quartered from the band's 2004 album Grind Your Fucking Head In. Percussive vocal strikes shift into skin-flaying shrieks as the band provides a feral accompaniment to Grind Brother Shane with their primitive death charge. An abusive drum pounding from Brother Walker immediately follows on Let It Go. Walker's insistent drum battery charges under the bass and guitar for added compulsion. Let It Go barely relents throughout as Phobia tear through this brutal track from 2012's Remnants of Filth full-length. Following Let It Go, So Full of Hate jackhammer strikes its way through the speakers next. Called from 2002's Cruel, So Full of Hate builds in intensity. Scathing by in the song's second half, So Full of Hate makes a statement with concussive authority. Another song from Grind Your Fucking Head In, Fuck What You Think, obliterates the crowd in quick succession, with scathing vocals and a disorienting guitar. Angular riffs assail from all corners in a lightning-fast blast of pure grind goodness. A very brief beer break ensues with an exclusive live-only track peeling off into the night, before sampled voices segue into 1998's Means of Existence. Drum and bass scramble forth before Bruce Reeves' burly guitar vehemently muscles through the speakers. Spastic interstices virulently lacing throughout the careening grind crusher, Means of Existence only adds to the delirium. Rapidly deploying a new song from the soon-to-be-released Generation Coward EP, Phobia strafes the audience with some more new filth as a quick-paced excavation jumps forth with disjointed grind angularity on Imbecile. A destructive moment of grind singularity finds the band roaring in unhallowed unity before descending into unhinged grind destruction once and for all. With a berating beatdown collapsing the air in the basement of Cattivo, 2017's Corpse Slayer bludgeons the crowd into submission. McLaughlin's voice shreds with sadistic intent as Corpse Slayer hits an early mid-paced groove before being overtaken by a sinister backwater grind. Brother Walker's drums and a bit of sampled drone initiates the underhanded grime of Rise Up. Track number 10 from the album 22 Random Acts of Violence, nimble runs threaten a surprising melodic liftoff, nearly attaining flight on this rollicking grind exposition. A trace of ascendant guitar makes an end song run before diving back into Rise Up's grinding rock stylings. Party in Hell makes a roaring entrance from 2017's Lifeless God before taking off at a breakneck speed. A madcap momentum splices itself into the proceedings as Party in Hell drops into an anti-gravity vortex for cavernous effect before rushing headlong to a finish. A 1-2 punch from the Remnants of Filth album follows Party in Hell's agitated delivery. A jarring start soon erupts into voracious fury as Contradictions clatters through the speakers, casting an ominous shadow before Submission Hold hurtles forth for one last gasp. Berating the crowd with stifled momentum, Submission Hold immediately charges forth upon Contradiction's conclusion. devolving into a primitive pummel as this hostile number from 2012 nears its darkened end. One final grind assault from Phobia follows Submission Hold. If you used to be punk, then you never were, quickly and deftly rockets from the stage to end Phobia's quick and nasty 20-minute set. A succinct send-off, if you used to be punk, then you never were, goes for the throat and does not relent for the durations of its 50-second pummel. A straightforward and brutal send-off from these grind legends. Blasting through a brutalizing 15-song set in just around 20 minutes, Phobia unfurl a terrifying set of grinding death. Strident and virulent riffs, unsettled bass runs, and an incessant drum barrage carry the band's influential grind attack. In a twisted symmetry of abrasion, heavyweight riffs bludgeon one moment and peel flesh the next, as McLaughlin's vocals switch effortlessly between guttural death grunts and a sharply barked strafe. Bass undercurrents harangue with a persistent and pounding gurgle as collapsing riffs break into brutalizing charges of death-addled grind. Roughing up the audience, Phobia successfully delivers a set intent on obliterating the audience with paint-scraping runs and depth-charging brutality. With a long and storied history tracing back to the band's founding in late 1984, New York hardcore mainstays Sheer Terror add even more heavy music gravitas to an already stacked bill. With original vocalist Paul Bearer leading the eternal charge, the band's pioneering crossover mugging is abetted by relative newcomers Johnny Eggs on guitar, Gary Bennett also on guitar, Jason Carter on bass, and Anthony Corallo handling the drums. With 3.5 decades inflicting harsh and strident punishment, Sheer Terror's history offers a transformative look at the changing soundscape of heavy music through the wide-ranging metallic hardcore explosion of the late 80s and early 90s. With a shrieking guitar wail dripping with a touch of Sabbathian doom, Sheer Terror opened their set with 1989's Here to Stay. The song's opening creep gives way to a barreling hardcore charge as this classic track from Sheer Terror's debut full-length Just Can't Hate Enough gets their set going. Anchored by the burly vocal barrage from imposing frontman Paul Bearer, Here to Stay's tectonic guitar tone and Brother Corallo's rhythmic precision crushes the atmosphere before rocketing forth once again. Pulling a mid-riff shift, Sheer Terror immediately charges into the next song, Spoiler, from the band's 1992 release Ugly and Proud. Like a mid-paced bulldozer, a battery of hostile metallic riffs clobbers the crowd as Brother Bearer growls through the microphone. A hearty showing for Sheer Terror is evident as the crowd yells their approval. Allergies and Shaving Woes open the inner song discourse from Brother Paul. Thanking Oyo from Killer of Sheep, Bearer soon turns to the next song. In a nasty whirlwind of hardcore delight, Heartburn and G hurtles through the air. Trading vocal lines with bass and Jason Carter and Oyo from Killer of Sheep, the trio hit with a quick-firing combination of vocal savagery on this 2014 song from the band's Standing Up for Falling Down full-length. A savage metal attack erupts mid-song before a brief solo spills from Johnny Eggs' six strings. Sheer Terror's bruising performance rolls on as the Staten Island band downshifts into the next song with smothering effect. Twisting and Turning, another track pulled from 1989's Just Can't Hate Enough, lumbers forth to start before splintering into a hardcore dervish. Rampaging runs drop into sweltering quarter-speed swamps as a bass-heavy lurch ends the song with a quick burst. A joke about talking dogs from Paul Bearer lands with groaning approval from the assembled miscreants as the band readies for the next song. Foreshadowing the middle portion of the set, the comedic turn finds the band deploying a more melodic and party-friendly form of hardcore, with Love Song for the Unloved leading the charge. Buoyant bass bubbles up and an upbeat rhythmic mood takes control as this title track from the band's 1995 album hits with a gleeful pop. A quick turnaround from Love Song for the Unloved, and Sheer Terror is pushing forward into a cover song next. Salome, originally by the foundational alternative country band the Old 97s and recorded by Sheer Terror in 2011 for a 7-inch single titled Spite, a forlorn rock croon rises to the surface as Sheer Terror turn in a contemplative rendition of this song. Salome saunters through the venue, pulsing guitars and a near saccharine solo drive the song forward as Brother Paul croons above. A nefarious groove follows the ruminative Salome as Roses from 1989's Just Can't Hate Enough creeps forward at a deceptively quickened pace. Dark and sinister vocals glide over the band's harrowingly underhanded swing, while moments of doomed heft and tomb-encrusted atmospherics showcase the versatility of sheer terror on this insidiously fetid song. A word or two about the band's new EP and the travails of the band's bassist, who is out on a post-divorce sabbatical, leads to a quick joke about record collector nerds and heroin addiction. With a word or two about the band of the night Eyehategod, Sheer Terror soon return to their hardcore assault. North Shore Love Affair, a recent track from the band's 2018 7-inch single Paul and the Family, skulks from the stage next. Churning riffs collide with a staggering and chatty vocal patter from Brother Bearer. Punk rock storytelling set to a backwater churn, North Shore Love Affair settles into a noise-addled squall with a deconstructed guitar solo bleeding through. A brief sonic charge rises from the haze before North Shore Love Affair reaches its end with a stalking intent. Disco Balls and his departed feline friend come up in inter-song conversation before Brother Bearer channels the late, great American dream Dusty Rhodes for the briefest of moments. After cutting a promo for the merch stands at the back of the venue, Bearer rallies his band for the final 3-song onslaught. The final triumvirate, all drawn from 1989's Just Can't Hate Enough, offers a final dash of hardcore intensity before Sheer Terror take their leave. A darkly regal opening climbs from the stage before Brother Corallo's nimble drums spring into action on Ashes, Ashes. An underhanded swing undergirds the song's quick-paced malice as a gravity of inevitability pulls Ashes, Ashes forward. Shifting sonic eddies gurgle and surge out before the song charges to a crushing close. Forming from the festering feedback following Ashes, Ashes, Cup of Joe rises from Ash's demise. Slowly coiling with malice, a simmering groove works its way through the room on this 30-year-old classic. Gruff aggression marks the vocals as the band churn through this song with repressive power. Ending with a vicious hardcore blitzkrieg, Sheer Terror lay final waste on a blistering closing number. The band's debut album title track, Just Can't Hate Enough, clatters to life. Buzzsaw bass leads the charge with pulverizing aplomb as Sheer Terror end their set in a vicious hardcore blur. Brother Carter's buzzing bass leads the blurring whirlwind as the final song rails off into the night. Fueling the mosh pit with sidewalk-sized slabs of sometimes congenial, mostly face-stomping Staten Island hardcore, Sheer Terror properly tenderizes the crowd for the filthy and fetid bands to follow. Drawing heavily from the band's debut full-length 1989's Just Can't Hate Enough, Sheer Terror level a well-received, fan-friendly set of metallic hardcore, dotted with a few more recent tracks to keep the proceedings interesting. Gallows humor from founding frontman Paul Bearer running rampant with the band's melodically incendiary hardcore whirlwind highlight this boisterous set from this long-running New York institution. An initial run beginning in 1981 found Detroit's Negative Approach attaining mythical status in the aftermath of the American hardcore revolution of the early 1980s. Representing a virulent strain of hardcore punk, Negative Approach would decimate the Midwest until their dissolution in 1984, leaving behind a debut compilation appearance in 81, the band's 1982 self-titled debut EP, and one full-length album with 1983's Tied Down. A handful of long unreleased tracks from a studio session in 1984 would see the light of day on a 2010 EP titled Friends of No One, would only add to Negative Approach's indelible mark on the seedier underside of heavy music. In 2006, vocalist John Brannon would reform the band and has toured periodically ever since. Joined by Harold Richardson on guitar, Ron Sikowski on bass, and John Lale on drums, John Brannon leads a vicious pack in this 2019 edition of Negative Approach. Forcefully bludgeoning to life, Negative Approach rip into 1983's Hypocrite to open their set. Stringent guitar and acidic vocals pour from the stage over the top of an unrelenting rhythmic pummel. Shades of repressed melody struggle from below before a harrowing descent carries through to Hypocrite's end. Careening bass opens the next song, Whatever I Do, from the band's self-titled debut EP released in 1982. With a punchy harangue, Brother Richardson's blurring guitar buzzes through the air as Brother Brandon's virulent invective rails furiously into the night. Building up to speed, another track from their '82 debut, Why Be Something You're Not, takes a turn, bouncing through the speakers with a rising stomp, as a regimented beatdown powers through the speakers to stomp a hole across the floor. Keeping attention on the Negative Approach EP, Pressure batters with a 10-second cyclone of fervent destruction, as Fair Warning emerges from Pressure's demise with a quick and spring-loaded velocity. Nimble riffs fire forth with a seemingly quicker and quicker pace as Fair Warning's merciless glide bounds to a close. A spry takeoff leads to a quick and brutal lurch on Can't Tell No One, inciting whiplash in the assembled audience. Can't Tell No One hurtles forth in nimble sprints and spastic fits. Like Fair Warning, Pressure, Whatever I Do, Why Be Something You're Not, and Can't Tell No One before it, this segment of the set focuses squarely on the band's debut EP, and the next song sticks to the agenda with a strident velocity as Sick of Talk careens into the crowd. Quick-firing riffs from Richardson and Sikowski's roiling bass locked in a perpetual motion add a sense of urgency to this antsy number. Shifting back into 1983's full-length album Tied Down, Negative Approach unleash an unsettled mid-paced crunch on Evacuate. Pinched guitar heft from Richardson pulls to the fore as Brannon's vocal spite circles sickly over this slow-moving song with a grime-coated grace. Next, Said and Done barrels from the stage with a clattered opening. Gnashing its way through the air with an abrasive front, Said and Done drops in with a short-fused offense, making a bruising run through the room in under a minute. A brief, feedback-laced undercurrent provides a momentary break before a bass and drum-driven exhortation from brothers Sikowski and Lale clambers to the front. Underhanded riffs churn through the next song as 1983's Dead Stop runs the Cattivo gauntlet with a sly melodic urgency pushing the song forward. A brief siren wail from Brother Harold's guitar ushers in the final charge to close out Dead Stop. On Live Your Life, John Lale's drums rattle to a start on this 1983 classic. Live Your Life punches forward with an incessant bounce, deploying a quick and densely packed rhythmic affront. Negative Approach quick charge through Said and Done with a lively vigor, providing a buoyant and popping lead into Ready to Fight. Skittering outbreaks of hardcore mania punctuate this track from the band's self-titled EP. Ready to Fight intermittently jumps forth with a nervous speed, adding a disorienting effect to the band's belligerent blur. Next, 1983's Your Mistake hits with a fast and vicious momentum. Your Mistake offers a bass-driven elasticity from Brother Ron, churning the song forward. A pointed, mid-paced assault punctuates the song's middle section before doubling down with another dose of sonic harassment to close out the track. Another quick and hostile dose of hardcore punk, Genocide strays from the stage. From a long-time lost and eventually found 1984 studio recording, Genocide is the only song tonight not found on either of the band's lone 2 official releases. Before long, a wall of noise rears its screeching head in the second half of Genocide. A destructive caterwaul rages from the stage as Negative Approach obliterates the place, before rising together once more to briefly rage through the song's closing moments. Rising from the feedback-ridden remains of Genocide, a bass-driven bounce offers an almost upbeat push to the next song, Nothing. With hostile vocal abrasion, Brother Brandon keeps the song mired in the filth-ridden gutter as Ron Sikowski's tidal force bass pushes the song along. Nothing petulantly rushes to a close before Negative Approach blur through their debut song. A vicious strafe through 1981's Lost Cause features frequent start-and-stop action, allowing the band to repeatedly berate the audience with an insistently punctuated hardcore fistfight. Sing-song vocals and an understated instrumental up front highlight the next song, Negative Approach's cover of Sham 69's Borstal Breakout. Carried with a burly yet near-traditional rock and roll punch, this song, originally recorded by Sham 69 in 1978 and recently recorded by Negative Approach in 2013, showcases the band's influences with a proud exuberance. With an incessant blur of hardcore momentum, the band's namesake track, Negative Approach, quickly harasses the audience with an erosive battery of quick-stepping hardcore. Truncated riffs lurch from the stage before the song draws to a close. Unleashing a punk rock perpetual motion machine on Tied Down, Negative Approach quickly subsume the air with a furious musical attack, with Brannon's strained and hurried vocal bites scathing across the band's heavy charge. On Friend or Foe, the band unleashes a dirty, circling number that hurtles forth in a whip-quick hardcore rebuke. Devolving into a clamorous beatdown, Friend or Foe dissipates in a fetid drawdown before 1983's I'll Survive tears loose. Set to a frothing frenzy as the set nears an end, Negative Approach rips into I'll Survive at a frenetic pace. Reaching out from the still early days of punk rock, Negative Approach closed the night with this cover of a 1978 song from the LA Punks The Weirdos. Gritty and strained punk holds court on this rendition, with I'll Survive delivering a melodic gem of pure hardcore hostility. A noisy solo squall emerges from the 6 strings of guitarist Harold Richardson as the simmering earworm gears up for the song's second half send-off, ending the show with some boisterous fun. Nearly 40 years older, but no less pissed off, Negative Approach bulldozed through their 22-song set with a voracious urgency. Embedding smears of melody within an abrasive hardcore shell, Negative Approach blazed through a sizable portion of their discography in a blistering 30-minute set. This legendary Detroit band's influence on headliner Eyehategod is evident on many tracks, as Negative Approach's grimy and abrasive take on hardcore rages from the stage. Bellowing bass blowouts and buzzsaw guitar hostility hurtle outward at a frenzied rhythmic pace, while an incessant vocal barrage from John Brannon shrieks with guttural fervor across the sonic battery. Staging a spring infection campaign across the United States, Eyehategod returns to the Steel City for a night of heaviness and hostility. Manning the front lines, the usual offenders, Mike Nine, Jimmy Bauer, and Gary Mader, stand their swampy ground, with Aaron Hill continuing to make Joey LaCaze proud on the band's drum throne. While the additional malaise inflicted by Brian Patton's guitar is still a noticeable absence, the band's sole 6-string sludge slinger, Jimmy, provides the Bauer power to maintain the thick and weighted riff strangulation. As the band makes their way to the stage one at a time, the crowd's energy builds for the post-amplification blues prowess of Eyehategod. A brief primer in regionally correct greetings has Mike Nine correctly using the term yins in a sentence before a distorted squall of feedback and scattered drum shots officially open the night's musical mugging. Muscling the riffs out of the negatively charged air, the onstage delinquents hurtle into the brutalizing lack of almost everything. Strong-arming the audience into lack of almost everything stumbling swagger, Eyehategod open a set full of distorted abuse and musical hostility. A murky swirl ratchets down the pressure before the gang quickly follows up with Jackass in the Will of God. Further strangling the air from the room, the Bayou Boys continue wringing necks as an oversized swing rises to overwhelm the crowd. Instigating the rabble-rousers in attendance, Nine banters with the crowd between songs before the narcotic burl of Eyehategod's overwhelming might powers into Parish Motel sickness. Unhurried moments offer a recuperative respite before doubling down with a bruising flurry. An oppressive, booze-swilled beatdown turns into a medicated stagger as Parish Motel sickness twists in a fetid slow-motion ecstasy to its terminal end. Conducting some old-school hostility, the opening moments of Blank make an appearance to batter the crowd into submission before a swinging bass line from Brother Mader deftly shifts the assault into Shoplift for a suffocating sludge waltz. A low-lying swing rises from Shoplift's slurred momentum to sickly effect. Sinking ever slower and lower, Shoplift threatens to crawl to a complete stop and eventually does. A brief discussion about the hot guys in Pittsburgh follows between Nine and Mr. Bauer before heading into the next song. Brother Aaron's 4-count opens 2014's Nobody Told Me. A swamp-addled blues-based motion permeates Nobody Told Me's depressive groove. A baleful solo from Brother Bauer briefly winds its way through before the band twists into the rest of the song. Eventually landing with a crushing Sabbathian riff filtered through a handful of quaaludes, Jimmy's guitar unfurls a final solo of impeccable grace before the band pulls together for the song's ending swing. Extolling the virtues of the other bands on the bill, Nine gets a round of applause for Phobia, Sheer Terror, and Negative Approach, before diving face first into Agitation Propaganda. Freewheeling speed and an unhinged clatter push Agitation Propaganda forward with a riotous glee. Jimmy's guitar berates the crowd with a vicious swipe before a slow-moving quicksand consumes Agitation Propaganda's final seconds. Another enlightening dialogue with the audience perfectly sets up the next sordid sonic mess. A 1-2 punch of white trash perversity quickly follows with Sister Fucker Part 1 and its more sickly sibling Sister Fucker Part 2, staging a final assault on common decency as Eyehategod set reaches the halfway point. A pleading bass line and a come hither riff open the song. Concussive momentum plows straight through Part 1 as shredded vocal work from 9 adds to the sleaze. Fetid gyrations bubble up on Part 2 as Eyehategod settles in for some low down and dirty sludge action. Slowly cycling down the drain, Sister Fucker Part 2 drowns the audience in a dank and unsavory swirl of slurried metal muck. Spreading good vibes and comforting the audience after the filthy 1-2 hump of Sister Fucker, 9 gets a pop for the aged and ailing Ric Flair as the band slowly roll into the subversive opening drawl of Medicine Noose. Twisting through subterranean tunnels carved by Brother Bauer's descending riffs, Medicine Noose soon charges into the air. Aided by a claustrophobic vocal fry from 9, Medicine Noose scathes through the speakers before the band's ever-present depressive tendencies emerge to pull the song deep into the swamp for good. Between-song quips and wordplay continues after Medicine Noose concludes, as comparisons to Iron Maiden are made and dismissed out of hand. Soon enough, 9 and the gang roll into the next song. From the recently released Adult Swim metal collection Metal Swim 2, Three Black Eyes makes its Pittsburgh debut. Unsettled riffs and a halting progression add an uneasy air to the song's noise-addled morass. Like a tar-drenched Black Flag during their more experimental mid-'80s moments, Eyehategod bulldozed through Three Black Eyes in a fitful haze. Scraping deeply, the final moments of the song hit with a harsh send-off. 9 congratulates the band on finishing the song before untapped potential arises in the conversation. An overwhelming wall of noise saturates the air, leading to an ultra-extended swarm of feedback. Screaming into the night, Jimmy's amp bleeds oral blood before Eyehategod tear into 1993's Take As Needed for Pain with choking vitriol. Take As Needed for Pain circles with a slow-motion strangulation. Sludge-heavy depth charges hit with a gritty, distorted bite as Take As Needed for Pain pulls the crowd deeper and deeper. A staggered swing rises from the viscous mess as our favorite New Orleans-based urchins drag the pace to an overwhelming and stifling depth. New Orleans is the new Vietnam, quickly rises from the feedback-drenched ashes of Take As Needed for Pain. In short order, a languid swing pours from the stage as this 2012 track shuffles forth. Brother Bauer's guitar leads the pack with a slow-barreling churn as Mater and Hill circle in rhythmic surges. Aural backwaters swirl nearing the song's end as the band inundates the audience with New Orleans' bleak and inevitable gravity. Digging into 1996's Dopesick, methamphetamine rears its ugly head for a brief, bedraggled visit as a harassing guitar run lunges from Jimmy's hands before the song collapses into itself and the band careens into Peace Through Peace and War, the follow-up song from the same album. Maniacal runs collide into circling quagmires of despondent sludge on this bruising classic. A rollicking pace with pummeling diversions, Peace Through War throttles the last gasp of air from the audience before Run It Into the Ground slowly claws its putrid form up to speed before hurtling forth at a concussive clip. A sharp decline leads to the final issuance of the night from the fetid foursome on stage. Closing the show with an apocalyptic dirge, a final 4-minute jam creeps and crawls its halting mass from the stage. 9 delivers a scattershot crazy vocal spray over the top of an obliterating musical backing from his brothers in sludge. Ending the night with an inebriated stagger, Eyehategod wrench this final devious affront from their infectious souls before taking their leave. With a career-spanning 1-hour set, Eyehategod overwhelms the Cattivo crowd with a filthy and fetid beatdown of the band's patented, motherfucking post-amplification blues. With a new song in the mix, our favorite New Orleans miscreants floor the audience with an overwhelming sonic crush. A putrid drum plod from Brother Hill erupts into Spartan rushes of spastic haste, while Gary Mater obliterates the low end with a vicious bass harangue as Jimmy Bauer's hustling guitar pulls double duty from the distorted gutter. Making things worse, 9's vocal filth further disorients the crowd as Eyehategod stake their undisputed claim as the grime-coated kings of the heavy underground.